have you back. And um, and we're gonna get started today. And I do hope things get better for you, and hopefully reaching out get you on the right path.
Yeah.
So we're back here with our retailer series, and we're super excited to have Angela and Rebecca joining us for, I think it's the third one in this series. And if you've missed the previous two, we do post them to YouTube, so you can always take a look and see what we've talked about in the past. But before we get started, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement and to recognize that we are coming to you across either Ontario and maybe you're even farther afield. And we want to recognize that the farms, land, and food systems we work within are part of the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations, and we acknowledge their long-standing relationship with the land and the knowledge that continues to shape how it is cared for today. And if you'd like to share your land acknowledgement in the chat for the land you're on today, we would love for you to do that. And if you want to also just let us know where you're coming from today and where you sit in the organic value chain. We'd love to have that information too. It's just great to know all who's joining us. So, a little bit about Ontario Organic. We are a not-for-profit. We're here for you to advocate for organics and healthy farming. And we want to bring together farmers, businesses, and the people who eat the food to build a stronger food system. So that's what we're here doing for you. And we do many things. And one of them is to bring great webinars, such as the one that we're bringing today, and have these wonderful guests, Rebecca and Angela. So to dive into our topic today, which is the where the supply chain breaks down, we want to talk about the supply chain. So it's easy to picture a straight line where you have a farmer, a processor, a distributor, a retailer, and the person eating the food. Like that feels like a very simple chain. But the reality is a lot messier. So every product on a shelf depends on dozens of people, businesses, and decisions that go into making those products. It depends on seeds, inputs, labor, transportation, processing, packaging, certification, warehousing, storage, distribution, and then the retail part, right? And then how much money people have to spend. Like there's so many pieces here. It's a complicated system for sure. And if any one of those pieces becomes not available, or it's too expensive, or it doesn't exist at the scale required, which Angela and Rebecca, we've talked about that before, where you got to buy like large orders. The entire system feels the impact. And so when you go and you grab your thing off the shelf and you go up and pay for it, you don't really see all the stuff that is taken to get that food to that shelf for you to look at and think about, do I want to buy this or not? Like there's so many steps that take place to have that happen. And maybe I wonder if consumers like think about like if it just magically appears or if they ever think about all of those steps in between. And so today's session, the supply chain reality is about where things can break. And that's where some of these most important conversations need to happen. And of course, if we were to have this conversation across the entire supply chain, we would have those distributors and those packers and those producers, and we'd have all of those people here that could talk about where they see things breaking. But the reality is, if you take that entire supply chain, if anything is broken down, it's not going to have got to Rebecca and Angela. Like that's really the reality of it. They're the end there, except for the person eating the food, right? And so they're the ones who actually can see all of those systems in place and possibly feel a lot of that frustration. So today we have some questions talking about, bottlenecks, products getting stuck, sourcing, um, imports. I'm kind of a little bit interested in that piece as well. And but most importantly, kind of where the opportunities are here, because one of the things about us here at Ontario Organic is we have this philosophy, this overarching philosophy of make organic easy. And so when we start to know where these problems are, we can solve them. But if we don't understand the problems, we can't solve them. And so constantly, I swear every day I learn about a problem I didn't know about the day before in the organic industry. And then it's like, okay, how can we solve that? And we ha keep having these discussions to figure out how we can solve these problems. And yeah, so today we're joined by Rebecca and Angela, who are living these realities every single day. And they work with suppliers, distributors, the customers, and I don't even know who else you guys are working for, but with a lot of different people. And so, yeah, so let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to meet our panelists. So, um, Angela, do you want to? I have the same one that I've talked about, your bio about raised by hippies on Salt Spring Island, and that you've been there for 15 years at Raise the Roof with your partner JJ. Do you want to talk a little bit about your background and where you are there? And I think last time we were like, oh, if you guys had photos to share today, I don't know if I sent that as a reminder, but if you even have photos that you can share of your stores, so people get an idea of where you're working, that would be great. So, Angela, why don't you go ahead and take it away, and then I'll pass it over to you after that, Rebecca. And you're muted, Angela.
Technologically, I can barely unmute myself, so I won't be able to obtain pictures of my store while staying in this call. That was just too big an ask for me. But that's okay. I'll put some up maybe later or something. They're
Yeah,
all
I
on
can
my
actually look.
Instagram.
I can look online and share my screen. Maybe I'll do that.
There's the our Instagram is, prolific, but also there's a Throwback Thursday little story nib to show my parents' grocery store when I was growing up and some of the other pictures from the past. But yeah, basically, I've been selling organic foods since I was a teenager. My parents were one of the first retailers to have a really good selection of organic food, definitely on my little island. And then bought wholesale. I bought wholesale for that store, and I also worked at a wholesale distributor for organics marketing in Vancouver. And then I started a home delivery company of organic food in Toronto in 1997. So I have been in all parts of the chain. Well, I've been in the wholesale chain. I've never been a warehouse picker, and I've never been a uh, yeah, I've never been a farmer. Um, but my parents did have a very large market garden before they started their little store. Anyway, blah blah blah. So yeah, here I am at Raise the Roots in Toronto and Leslieville, to a neighborhood in the east end of downtown, and we've had Raise the Roots since 2014, and Gigi and I run it, and that's where I'm at.
All right, here I'm gonna share my screen here. I've got some pictures here. We have. Whoops. Can you see that?
Yep,
Yeah, so we've got some photos. There's your little market. And some of these are a little bit older. Are they
they're still pretty current, to be
pretty
honest.
current? Okay. Oh,
That
there
you
you
see
go,
that
the
that
info.
merchandiser, that produce merchandiser is still our that's what we've got. It's 6 feet, and it's that's one of our big bottlenecks. It's not big enough.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. So, yeah. All right. I'll pass it over to you, Rebecca.
Yeah, good morning. So I'm representing Joanne's Place Health Foods. So we've got a location in Peterborough, Ontario, and then about 40 minutes away in Lindsay, Ontario. The Peterborough location being quite a bit bigger than the Lindsay location. Yeah, like I said, I'm a holistic nutritionist, so I'm just representing Joanne's Place. I do a small amount of buying, but I did my best to gather some information from my main buyer, my general manager, and then the other two managers today, just so I can have kind of fully formed answers to your questions. Joanne's Place celebrated 50 years last week. So we opened in Lindsay 50 years ago. Our founder, Joanne Fillets, who's now daughter and son-in-law, are carrying on her legacy. And yeah, that's a little bit about Joanne's Place. I think, yeah, I think that's what I have to say for today.
All right. And I've got a little video on your website
Oh,
here. Maybe
awesome.
I can just share that. That actually looks like it'll be pretty good to share. All right, let me pause here. 1976. All right. Okay. Here we go. Oh, little house there. And that's the place in Peterborough.
That's right. Yeah, this is the Peterborough location.
And is your Lindsay location here?
Let me see. You know what? I haven't watched this to be
Oh,
honest. No. So no, they didn't show the Lindsay location.
okay. This is
Again
Lindsay.
in
Yeah.
AB social media, I can certainly gather some things. I can try to
Yeah.
do it while we chat now or gather some things at least for next week. You had asked for that last time. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah, just a little bit. We've been talking about this for a few weeks and we haven't like actually seen what your guys' stores look like. So I thought it would be nice to have that there. So, all right. So as we kind of get into this, the kind of thinking about this entire supply chain, if you had to say where the biggest gap is between supply and demand of what's happening in with that supply chain at the retail side of things. What would you say that biggest gap is? And I'll start with you, Rebecca.
Yeah, so I kind of pulled, like I said, my general manager and our buyers about this. And one was a big um, mention of my buyer was imported ingredient, like things that include imported ingredients. And then just like more so like trendy, kind of when ingredients get trendy, you see this big like pull and lots of kind of products being made with them. And then, of course, like a major drop off because it's more difficult to source them. So that can be a big difficulty as well. We're lucky in that we offer both organic and non-organic options, so that can fill a lot of those gaps because there can be kind of more of a demand for organic. Um, and maybe if we can't find it, we're bringing in a non-organic option, maybe focusing on like more sustainable options, at least non-GMO, that kind of thing. So that does help to fill some of those gaps. And then the other thing mentioned, which is pricing can be really difficult in that kind of supply and demand. We want organic products, but with the financial climate right now, it can be just really difficult to pay those prices. We do, in terms of what I mentioned of having organic and non-organic, there are certain things that we don't compromise on: meat, dairy, chocolate, coffee. Yeah, certain things that we just know can be maybe more heavily sprayed or more problematic. We don't compromise on. But yeah, that being like pricing, imported kind of ingredients or really high demand, trendy ingredients. And then, yeah, that can be really difficult. Those were the main things noted.
The biggest gaps there, yeah.
Yeah.
Angela, what the first thing I think about is this the biggest gaps between supply and demand. I saw your posting about the Finnings overwintered spinach and the lineup. I should have that to post, but you had a lineup like people were getting tickets for a concert.
That was a joke. There was no
Oh, was
lineup.
that a joke? Okay.
No, that was a joke. Yeah.
I was like,
Um,
really?
yeah, no, that would be fun. That would be so fun.
Yeah.
Um, no, I was making a joke because people do really anticipate it. So, if it was an Apple iPhone, there would have been a lineup for sure. But people were kind of poking their heads in the door for a few weeks prior, just saying, "Where is it? When's it coming in?" So, I feel like the lineup was kind of a virtual lineup, shall we
Virtual
say?
lineup. They knew. They knew.
They knew, yeah. So people were very excited about that. I think that, like, specifically, some of the big, um, some of the big gaps for us, some of the big problems are getting in products that people think of, that people have a very emotional attachment to as being local, and that they have a very emotional attachment to being better if they're from Ontario. I don't think people have that attachment, say, like to Ontario organic broccoli. I don't think people have that kind of emotional, oh, the broccoli, when's it coming? And I mean, even the spinach attachment, it's kind of a new phenomenon because Bennings has that overwintered spinach, and it is like honestly so amazing. So I think that the things that we sometimes have a trouble with are strawberries. People have a big emotional attachment to Ontario organic strawberries. Corn, people have a big attachment to local corn. Not necessarily organic corn, but they have a big attachment to local corn. And peaches, people have a big emotional attachment to Ontario organic peaches. So, the two soft fruits, the berry and the soft fruit, are people do have like a general knowledge that they are going to be heavily sprayed if they're not organic. And the corn, yeah, I don't think people have quite the organic association with that. But when we can't get those products, people just think we're losers. Like, they just think that it's our fault and that they can get it at the farmers market, and which isn't necessarily true, but people do make that connection, farmers market, organic, and that is not always the case. We do have some customers who say, I was just at the farmers market, nothing is organic. I've come straight here because I know that everything here is organic. Um, so yeah, in terms of but what Rebecca said is true. Like when something becomes super trendy, um, like sardines are super trendy right now. There's like a million TikTok videos about how good sardines are. I
Really?
haven't seen them, but my kids have told me this. Well, customers have told me this. And so we are having a hard time keeping them in stock, for example. But in terms of produce, it's we don't sell any conventional produce, so we don't have a comparison there. And we do try to keep an eye on our competitors' pricing, and organic food is a little more expensive. But uh, yeah, I think it's the products that people have the emotional attachment to that are the hardest for us.
Okay. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing to think about. Emotional attachments are the things that people get the most upset about. I guess this actually leads into the next question I had for you guys, which is, the products that you struggle to source locally or consistently. So I'll go ahead, Angela. Why don't we? I know because I feel like this is, we already talked about strawberries and that kind of thing. This is a good place for this, but also additional products that you find that are difficult to source locally or consistently that your consumers really want to have. And I guess then the question is too, in the context of this conversation is why? Like, where is the breakdown happening in the supply chain that makes it so you can't, get them locally or consistently? I mean, I would guess like oranges is very obvious, right? We can't grow oranges here, so it's hard to get them locally, period, right? But maybe consistently you can get them. I don't know, but I guess that's kind of like thinking about in terms of supply chain breakdowns too.
Well, we try to sell a full case of the most commonly consumed fruit and vegetable items. So, if that item is not grown in Canada, we will still sell it, like bananas, and like you said, oranges, citrus. Um, so, I mean, there was a little bit of a brouhaha over people not wanting to buy American food. When the elbows up sort of trend was really popular earlier this year. And that we actually do still have a couple of customers who say they're still not buying United States product, but it isn't quite as common. So, but increasingly, like even since I remember when I was a kid and we were, most of the organic citrus we were buying was from California, and now a lot of it is from Mexico. So I do feel like things just go further south because the labor's cheaper and the and because of weather, and they can steal the water from whoever, and so it seems to be working out okay. Um, but so even I remember when we first started selling organic food, there were gaps. There were gaps in the time of year you could buy grapes. There were gaps when you could buy green beans. There were gaps, but there aren't really any seasonal gaps anymore in for us consumers in North America. They're just somebody's finding a way to grow that thing somewhere, and organic farmers are on that bandwagon. Like they're maybe not quite as sophisticated as conventional farmers. I mean, that's arguable. Maybe sophisticated is the wrong word. They're not quite as prolific as conventional farms, but someone's growing something organic somewhere in the world and where it can get to Canada. So we barely have any gaps, although green beans actually still is kind of a gap thing. But we sometimes price stops us. Like we don't sell an import asparagus, for example, because that's definitely an emotional attachment Ontario thing. And the Peruvian asparagus is so expensive. So that just we just are like we'd have to sell it for so much money, and so we just don't. We're a small store. Um, and then it's maybe more exciting when it comes in from Ontario because people are ecstatic that it's here, so it's kind of it's a big deal. And but I'd say soft fruit, I mean, I know that you can grow soft fruit in Ontario, but I'm not a farmer and I know that these things can be very difficult. Like I know that there's not more organic strawberries in Ontario because they're very, very hard to grow successfully and bring them to market. You might be able to sell them at your farm stand, but the portability of an organic strawberry is weak. We really shouldn't even be eating them. We don't really have much business eating them unless we're growing them right here. So um I'm kind of going on, but that's yeah, there's not much of a gap, but there are certain things that I don't even know if they're going to improve. Like we're not really going to have many organic peaches in Toronto anytime I can see because I've been having the same difficulty getting them since 1997 when I started selling organic food in Toronto. So I'm not saying no one's growing them, but also transport would be a huge obstacle on organic peaches because they don't have a fungicide on them and they mold. Literally, you can almost watch the mold grow on organic peaches. So, I don't see that problem really being rectified. Um, I think that's just something we have to suck up. Like we can't eat everything we want to eat. It's just we think we can and we think we have the right to and that we're entitled to that, but it's definitely not practical.
Yeah. So that's really interesting too to think about. Like we're in a place where we could really have any organic produce food that we want in the world at any time of year is a little mind-blowing when you say that, right? Like that's mind-blowing. But yeah, the attachment to the local foods and like if you are, I'm just trying to think of, is there foods that you're paying cheaper prices for imported versus locally? Is that
All the time. All
all
the
the
time. Yep.
yeah.
Because a lot of the farmers that are selling to us, I mean, we do buy a lot through Fennings. We don't really buy that much direct farm produce. Logistically, talk about logistics, it's very challenging. But yeah, like even Fennings are actually a family of people actually trying to support their workers and they're trying to be a sustainable, like a financially sustainable operation. And so Fennings, I find they don't price with the market as much as like our other major importer, Terra Fresca. They're completely market driven. I'm not saying they're a bad company, but they're pricing what they think they can get depending on how much of the items in the marketplace. They're trying to be competitive, blah blah blah. So I think that and then if we do buy local from a farmer, it's a person, it's a woman or it's a man, and they're like on their ground toiling the field. So they're not gonna, they can't afford to sell us a bunch of kohlrabi, which nobody even wants to eat, for less than very expensive, and that's legitimate, but it is sometimes a hard sell to the consumer. It's hard to get the customer to be like, why don't I try kohlrabi? It's ridiculously expensive, but I'm going to try it. Like same with curry turnips. They're so delicious. The farmers grow them. They're expensive. They're going to be able to buy and import broccoli cheaper.
Yeah. It's an interesting an interesting conundrum, right? Local versus cheap, or not cheap, but less expensive. How about you, Rebecca? What do you guys struggle with sort saying locally or consistently? And if you think about it in that wider thing where the supply chain breaks, why do you think that is happening with those items?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at like defining local as within 100 kilometers, I think that can get stretched. We do stretch it too, but our ideal would be local is within 100 kilometers. There's a lot that we can't source, right? And because especially in our Peterborough location, we're quite a bit bigger, we like to offer lots of options. Um, yeah, there's a lot that we don't offer that's necessarily local. But with that being said, I think we would love to see more like truly local, organic dairy, organic meat, that kind of thing. And I think where the supply chain can break down in that sense is just like the administrative time and cost, just of having that organic certification. I think we recently, I may have shared this on a previous call, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but we recently had one of our beef suppliers drop their organic certification just because of the cost and the time for like paperwork and that kind of thing. So, we have a great relationship with that farmer. We know they're still using organic practices. We understand why they've had to drop that seal. But, I think, yeah, that's kind of where we're seeing things break down is just, and what, with the financial climate the way it is, I think maybe their sales are decreasing. This is speculation. And it's not worth it to them to kind of have that. People maybe aren't that are cutting corners, in certain ways. So I think that's kind of what we would like to see. And I know you guys do a lot of great work in that area to kind of support farmers and that kind of thing with doing those things. But yeah, that's what we're seeing. And then of course it was mentioned just, we still do have some customers that are kind of only wanting to buy Canadian. Um, there's an opportunity for some education there if our staff are able to have those conversations with them about what's grown, when. But it's almost like a couple different camps. Some really understand seasonal eating, and then others are just like, I want this. Why isn't it Canadian kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good to know. I don't have this, so it's kind of a bit of a question out of nowhere, but I was reading something about we're going to be seeing these skyrocketing um, grocery costs by September, October. Are you guys predicting, is this like a reality that's going to be coming up, or is this just people looking at these gas prices and weather related? Like there's a bunch of apparently dominoes in place that are people are starting to suggest we may see the highest we've ever seen in terms of grocery prices by September, October. Have you guys heard anything about that at your end?
No, we
No.
haven't
Haven't
talked
heard about
about
it. Yeah.
that.
Okay, all right. I'll have to do a deeper dive into this. It's come to me in a couple of different places and people expressing concerns about it. So if you guys haven't heard about it, it makes me feel a little bit better.
Of course.
We don't want that to happen. All right. Okay, so let's talk about your relationships that you have with your producers and or your suppliers. Angela kind of already dived into the Finnings relationship and occasionally buying, I don't know if it's occasionally, but also buying from the producers directly. Rebecca, who are you interacting with at Joanne's place? Are you direct farmer? Are you dealing with distributors? A mix of both? And yeah, just tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
Definitely a mix of both. Like some in terms of produce, we have one main farmer, Circle Organics, that we work with for kind of local. Otherwise, we are sticking to for produce, Fennings and Terra Fresca as well. But outside of that, definitely a variety. I can like shout out Yorkshire Farms, like what other kind of like organic meadow dairy, like lots of other Harmony Organics as well for dairy. Like, so lots of, direct to farms as well, but we're also kind of dealing with like bigger suppliers, UNFI, ONFC, that kind of thing for lots of different things. So definitely a variety. And then, in terms of certain local, like we've got a local tallow company that we work with. So yeah, definitely a huge variety that way.
Yeah, and in terms of those relationships that you have with those people, have you had a breakdown with any like of these producers or these distributors in the past that it's been an issue, or maybe not a complete breakdown, but just difficulties?
hmm I mean, I think, some of what we see is that it's really hard to translate to the customer, um, the work that's gone into creating this end product and like getting them to pay the retail price that it's worth, right? That's difficult, of course, because there's so much available online and different comparisons happening that way. So that can be tough. And then, I mean, of course, smaller producers may not always have the volume of products. That kind of customers on the flip side of it willing to buy their products as well. So it can be difficult to negotiate like a wholesale price for with a fair margin for us. And then something our buyer noted as well is it can be hard to like lack of communication. I mean, we have a fairly small buying team, so it can be hard for us to follow up on like why didn't we get this, and we're finding that information's not always like offered up. Um, you know, um, that can be really difficult to find out like what happened, why didn't we get this, what were the production issues there. So lots of different kind of breakdowns in that sense. And then because we're smaller and some of these big distributors are also selling to the major corporations, we feel at times we're missing out on certain maybe discounts on certain products that are maybe being superseded to other places as well.
Okay, that's a good point too, right?
Mhm.
Because I guess it's a competitive buyer market as well as
Yeah.
the seller market. Yeah.
Yeah.
Angela, how about you? Same question. Um, who are you getting your products from through? You already mentioned the fittings piece and some producers. And do you have issues ever with those relationships?
Yeah, there's always issues with relationships. I mean, back in the day when I was a sales rep for Pro Organics in Vancouver, I had my little desk set up there and there was a lot of emphasis on the personal relationship that I would have with small retailers like Joanne's Place and Raise the Root. Sometimes we even went to visit them, help them improve their produce section. So we were very, very involved in the relationship and for people who wanted to talk their order through on the phone, oh, we don't have any red peppers. Would you like yellow? You know, so the problem is now that a lot of vendors want you to place the order online on an online portal. They don't actually want to talk to you. They don't actually have a team of sales reps that is really engaged with what your stores looks like and what works for you and doesn't work for you. And for us, for example, we're so small. If we get shorted one case of green beans, it means we won't have green beans for the whole weekend. That makes us look super bad. It was just one case, so could somebody have gotten nine that got 10? Probably. But you have to have somebody, you have to have a business that's really involved in like for organics, we used to dole things out. I remember, the owner used to be like, well, we're getting 48 cases of Satsumas and, you know, she would kind of dole it out by percentage, like these small little people, let's just give them one case. If someone's ordered 48 cases, well, why don't we give them 40? Like, so that kind of with AI and just everybody always wants to spend the least amount of money on labor, and so it's really difficult for us to even sometimes get somebody on the phone who wants to talk your order through with you and to make subs in real time. And so if someone doesn't make subs in real time, just like Rebecca said, your buying team's like, well, why didn't we get X? And no one knows why you didn't get it, but probably no one was paying enough attention to that order to be like, well, if they can't have a, 750 on olive oil, do they want a liter? Or, you know, but produce, of course, is subject to so many more problems and difficulties because it's such a moving piece. Like, oh, they don't have any pints of blueberries, but we would have taken a half pint. No one knew that because no one called us to find out, did we want to sub on that? So, sometimes that makes us feel upset. And sometimes we say this makes us feel upset. But generally saying you're feeling upset doesn't really solve any problems. So we just try to beg for answers. Most reps want to get the order by email. So we'll send the order by email. And then, we usually have to send like sometimes a dozen follow-ups to get all of our questions answered because they'll be like out of stock, out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. And then we'll be like, okay, as subs, do you have blah, 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 blah? And then they might answer like half those questions. So then you have to go back to them. Well, do you have blah, 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 blah? So the buying process takes a long time. And, for our store, it's a huge labor pull. My partner JJ does a lot of the buying. She supervises the buying. And then we have one employee who helps with the buying 1 day a week. And that's great. But the buying is a huge part because also we buy how we have so many single product vendors. There's so many people that we buy just one little thing from. And we actually we're not buying from any more single product vendors. We don't have time. We're trying to keep up with things. And so now when people come to us with their wonderful little artisan product that they really want to for us to sell, we're just like, we're really sorry, but we can't even look at it. We can't know, we can't taste it. And I hate that because those artisanal producers are making stuff in Ontario and they can't get in with the big suppliers. But like Rebecca said, we buy from them all. We buy from Purity and Pure Source and UNFI and ONFC and Terra Fresca and Fennings, and we buy like from one or two, sometimes three different farmers. Like we buy our apples direct. Um, so it's the same people, and some of those are becoming huge. Like I think that a venture capital firm owns Purity Purity Life merged with ONFC that merged with Pacific out west and Horizon Foods and
All together.
I can't keep up with that. But those some of those companies are massive.
I
Yeah.
just want to echo what Angela said too. Like we're kind of in a similar boat when you don't have distribution, it can be really tough for us to kind of even look at your product or consider bringing it in. Like we have one main buyer. I do a small portion of supplement buying for our professional products, and then our managers take on a tiny bit each as well. So, often if you don't have distribution, we just can't consider bringing it in. And sometimes you do see people get distribution and we're excited and we can bring in their product when it comes to that. But yeah, same boat there as well.
And like if I was a single, like if I had my artisan product or whatever, and I wanted to get into distribution, is that a big step for those people to take so that they can actually get into your stores? Like how
I
difficult is
think
that
it is, but
process?
I don't really know. Like I think
Yeah.
that what people do is I think that they market it themselves at farmers markets and craft shows and like it's a hot sauce or whatever. And I think they try to get enough of a buildup, and then they try to get those people to call that distributor or talk to retailers and say, "Can you please get this product in the store?" And then once you have once you've crossed over to some kind of critical mass, you can phone up ONFC and say, "Please carry my product." But I don't really know what hoops they're they have that for them to consider taking a product.
Yeah. And a whole other topic, but when you said that, I'm like, oh, how difficult is it to go from that step to that step, right? And I think we've talked about this pretty much with all of the other questions, but really, how do pricing and margins create tension across the value chain? One of the things with this food Canadian food strategy, the national food strategy that came out, was looking at the percentage of how much money people along the value chain take, right? And so one of the numbers that we came across was 11% for farmers, right? People are like, the farmers are gouging. And of course, it depends on if you're having to have it processed and packaged and that kind of thing. I was actually at Del Fresco on Thursday last week and got to watch the entire packaging facility there. And you'd think it's all automated, but there was literally hundreds of people in there packing food. Like it's not the automation that we kind of imagine, at least for produce. And yeah, so when you're looking at the pricing and margins, and you guys again, you're at the very end, like what everybody's added in, then you get it, and they're like, this is the price, and then you have to add that margin there. So how do you feel like that creates tension across the value chain? Are you seeing it at your end, or is all that happening before it even gets to you? And I'll start with you, Angela.
Um, well, I mean, obviously, I don't exactly know what you mean by all that happens before it gets to us. I mean, we do have to put a margin on it to survive, be in business. We have a target margin. We make exceptions to it constantly. We have a target margin per category. Like we have a produce target margin, we have a dairy product margin target. I'm sure same as at Joanne's. It's kind of like what can that particular section um, what's standard and what can it withstand. We definitely take a higher margin when we can because we constantly take a lower margin. So,
Yeah.
if we have to sell something for more than $10 a pound, we just don't really. We hardly ever do. And increasingly, things what we tack on a margin, it's coming in at over $10 a pound, and that's bonkers. Like we don't make a margin on strawberries at 9.99 for a 1 pound unit. Like that's a lot of money. The funny thing about Raise the Root is that we have these price tags, we manually create them, and so we have a Rolodex at the till, and it has all the old price tags. So whenever you're about to put a price tag out, and you go into the system, and you're like, how much are we charging for blueberries? And it's like 6.99 or whatever. So you try to find the price that says blueberries 6.99 from the origin that they're from. And the hilarious, well, actually, it's really devastatingly sad. Part of that is that there are so many signs in the Rolodex that will never, ever be used again because of how low they are. Because some of those price tags are from 2014. And it really, that's where I can really see how much prices have gone up. And when I see that, there's some price tags in there for blueberries at 3.99, I'm like, we'll never charge that again. We need to be recycling that tag.
Yeah.
So, like I think that in plain speak, Raise the Root barely survives. That's the honest truth, the bottom line. Many months we barely break even. Many months we lose money. We do feed our family of four from the store, and we do house and clothe ourselves. But there there have been many times in the last 2 years that we have felt that this is unsustainable because we just can't seem to charge enough money to make enough money to for things to be yeah, to feel safe. Like so I think people are surprised when they hear that, and they're like, oh, but you've been in business for so long, why is it so precarious after so many years? And I don't know. Food is a precarious business to be in. It's so perishable. That's one thing that's really, really tough. But yeah, so we're constantly battling with the margin. We're constantly trying to eke out as much of a margin as we can while still thinking that people will come to our store and buy that item. And one of the ways we really try to make our store a value add for other reasons. Like we try to make it so comfortable for people to come here, and we try to make it so friendly, and we try to have the produce be looking its absolute best so that like people know that not going to be crap when they get here. And yeah, we work on loyalty, really, really work on those relationships with people so that we can keep people coming here, because food is getting very, very expensive, and that is hard for people to deal with, that people aren't making very much money.
Yeah. Well, and this is actually you're not unique in any of these I would say in the value chain that, especially producers like the margins are so slim that these people, anybody who's in organics is doing it because they're passionate about what they're doing, and yeah, nobody's a West End family. Like grocer getting rich kind of thing. And I don't even know if people think that, but they see the price tags and maybe they do think that, right? And it's interesting that it costs more, but at the end, the losses are bigger, as well. Before I get to your answer on this, Rebecca, I do see that there's a couple of questions in the chat I just want to get to. So, Marcel wanted to know if you can say who supplies their organic produce that works with Ontario farms. And I think we talked about the distributors, Terra Fresca and Fennings, and some of the dairy. I don't know, Marcel, did you have like some other ones in mind that you were particularly thinking of with that question? Oh, I don't know if.
Okay, I actually do know how to unmute. I'm just on my phone. I couldn't figure it out.
That's okay.
No, I'm attending this because I'm trying to learn more about organic infrastructure, just in Ontario in general, and then because of the most recent announcement from the federal government around food sovereignty and food infrastructure I guess, investment. I think that I'm near Thunder Bay, and I think that we're going to probably be getting a food hub here. And I was just thinking about, you know, about wider distribution and about, working with distributors and then, who they are and who I should contact, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to learn more about that landscape in general.
Okay. So do you guys have any ideas for Marcel in terms of organic produce? I guess getting it all the way up to you would be one of the difficulties as well. So, are there other organic retailers up that way? And Angela, maybe you would know if there's anybody,
Yeah,
or
I mean, just
Rebecca.
contact the biggies. When I worked at For Organics in Vancouver, we shipped all the way to Manitoba. So I'm I'm fairly sure that Terra Fresca. I actually don't know, but I you could ask Terra Fresca if they would ship up to Thunder Bay. I wouldn't be surprised if they shipped with a independent trucker, maybe not their trucks. And also Pennings might I Pennings goes they go a lot of places. Again, it might not be with their trucks, but Thunder Bay is a pretty big place as far as I know, and I'm sure that there's organic food going up there. And then the big distributors like UNFI and ONFC, I imagine they're probably going up there. For dairy, like John Luke and Neil, I don't know. I don't feel they're as big, and that's who we buy our dairy from, our Harmony and Organic Meadow. Um, we don't really sell very much meat. It's kind of something we're looking into, so I'm not sure. Maybe Joanne could speak to that. But I mean, and then just trying to forge relationships with maybe some local growers in the community, and getting them to bring the food to you. I mean, that's one thing. If there's a food hub, or you do want to avoid, in my opinion, you want to avoid going to get the food yourself. You want to set up a delivery system where you can receive it at your premise.
Yeah, that's good information. Joanne, Joanne, Rebecca, do you have anything to add to that?
I believe Purity Life as well, who, like Angela said, has now merged with like ONFC, and yeah. I believe my aunt used to work at a health food store way up, forgive me, but like way up. I want to say Thunder Bay area. And I think she like kind of had negotiated with Purity Life and found a way to get stuff up there. So yeah, I think just reaching out, like Angela said, and just kind of seeing what you can figure out that way. I think they will likely, yeah, figure something out with you.
Thanks.
Great.
Just to provide a little more context, I am an organic farm. I'm not looking to necessarily like open a store or anything, but I'm looking for distribution for my product. So
Oh,
that's kind of what I wanted to add there. I'm a vegetable farmer.
Sorry,
oh,
I
okay.
missed that completely.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
may not
you
have
want
said
to
that.
distribute your food and know how to get it further afield than Thunder Bay. Is that what you mean?
That's right.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't think, besides driving it down to the food terminal, I know that at the food terminal in Etobicoke, the local farmers set up their trucks in under the parking shelter and pedal to retailers like myself. If I wanted to go buy at the food terminal, I could, but I don't want to get up that early in the morning. But so local retailers, the small ones, and I don't know about the bigger ones, but they go to the food terminal, they look at the food themselves, and then they can buy it on site. But that would mean trucking it down in a refrigerated vehicle, I assume, to Toronto. So aside from that, I don't really know.
All right. Well, we don't actually have a whole lot of time here. This has blown by today, like whoo. And so Rebecca, the last question I had was about the price and margins. If you want to say anything about that, I'd love to hear it. But really, the final question I'd like to ask both of you is if you could make things easier, if you could fix something in this where things do break down, what would be, I'm just gonna say the one big thing that you would choose to fix. So Rebecca, I'll give you a last chance to answer that pricing and margins question if you want to address that, and then the final question.
Yeah, I don't have a huge amount to add to kind of what Angela said, other than, I think it's really difficult to sometimes people are comparing us to like the bigger stores, right? And not understanding, like Angela said, we're prioritizing customer service and community and doing all these other really, I'm biased, really amazing things in the community. And certain customers see that worth the price, and others may not. So I think that can be kind of tough. And then maybe I'll let Angela go ahead in terms of what she might change. I don't have something off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think the big thing I would change is something I alluded to earlier, which is that I wish that we could have more time and attention from the suppliers. I really do wish that. Like, I mean, we're definitely not their biggest client, but I mean, I wear a lot of hats here, and one of my hats is I do the accounts payable, and we are spending a few $1,000s a week with someone like Fenning. So, that's like we're definitely spending more than $50,000 a year. And sometimes I feel like, of course, that's a small fry compared to so many different businesses, but it's not nothing. And yeah, I wish we had more help. Like, I wish we had somebody who would talk our orders through with us if we wanted that, or at least email the order through with us and make sure we were being asked for subs and told about shorts in time to make a sub. And I wish there was, like, we have one sales rep, for example, at John Luke O'Neill, and we send her the order, she phones, she goes through every single item on the order and says, "Oh, we don't have that. Do you want a sub?" And then she knows what's available to sub. And it's a fantastic customer service. And if every one of our suppliers did that, it would really save us a lot of angst, but also allow us to have a better and more comprehensively consistent supply of the items that we can sell to our customers.
All right. Oh, that's a great answer. Customer service for the win would be the answer. And Rebecca, anything then that you thought of, or just to support probably Angela with what she's saying?
Honestly, I really do support Angela with what she said. I think that's huge. I think we kind of get slipped between the cracks at times, and I think that would be amazing. That sounds like a really awesome rep from John Lucas. So, because customers don't understand, it's just not on the shelf here, and it's on the shelf here. So that's what they understand. So, I think, again, we have our tried and our amazing, like really loyal customers who will just wait and they'll come back when we have another option or we have what they're looking for. But others are like, well, you guys don't have it, someone else has it. So that can be really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but thank you both so much for your time today. I think this was a great session talking about where supply chain, where things break, and I learned a lot more. Again, every time I learned so much about this part of the value chain that I just did not know before, and it's just a great education piece for myself and probably for everyone here as well. Next month we're right back here with Angela and Rebecca, selling organic without selling. So we're gonna talk about what that looks like. And just to mention, we do have a couple of upcoming events. We hope you can join us for in the next few weeks and few months. And so, Sammy, if you want to just share that, perfect. So yeah, so oh, I have scaling without losing identity. I have two different topics here. My apologies. I think I said the wrong one here. So we also have happening next week the Grow Smart Grants, Loans, and Learning for Organic Farmers. This is literally the biggest, we usually have the biggest turnout for these quarterly financing seminars. And Angela and Rebecca, there might be something there for you. So maybe you can join us and see what some of those options are. And we also have a special guest joining us, Guillermo Anderson from St. Bridget's Dairy, to talk about the butter breakdown. And that'll be a fun one too. And of course, we have our other coffee chats of market gardeners and our grain farmers and friends. And then we also are going to be out on farms. So we have our Feed on Farm series. And I forget, we're going to be at greenhouses this coming Saturday at Nature Fresh. And we'll have a HasCap brunch happening in July. We'll be out at Southbrook. Um, am I forgetting any there, Sammy? I'm just trying to remember some of our extra Feed on Farms.
We have Fennings in September. We're doing
Oh,
a
yeah.
wagon tour there.
Wagon tour there, and we continue to add. So we hope you can all come out and join us for that. So thank you so much for joining today, and we look forward to being back here with you, Rebecca and Angela, next month. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have
for
a great
having
one.
us.